What do I need to be good at to be great at something?
Hello, everyone. You are listening to She Leads with Carly, and in this show, we talk to the absolute best, brightest, and yes, badass leaders.
Tap into where your natural curiosity takes you. Just making sure you're not your own roadblock. Even if you do fall, you're going to fall and you're going to learn.
Together, let's build a DNA of what it takes to rise to the top and truly make an impact. I'm your host, Carly Malatsky. I'm incredibly excited to welcome our guest today, Tania Rojas Deshpande. Tania is the product lead for the Shopify Logistics launch team, empowering merchants to start fulfilling in the fastest and simplest way possible. She was previously a director of product at GoDaddy, the world's largest domain registrar, where she was responsible for launching and creating e-commerce products used by millions of people worldwide. Tania has over 15 years of product management experience, leading teams of various stages and industries to build standout products. From building top 100 iOS apps from the ground up, having her products featured in the Super Bowl, and winning awards for innovation and top usability marks, she thrives on fast-paced problem-solving, team building, and dynamic collaboration. She was born and raised in Mexico City and is a graduate of Stanford University. Tania, welcome to the show. I am so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I am equally just as excited. This is awesome.
Of course. So, Tania, first, set the scene. Where are you in the world? What's work situation like? How's it going?
So I am currently in Northern California. So I live not too far away. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, not too far away from San Francisco, about 45 minutes south. I am working remotely and just taking some time in between getting some work done currently at my current role. Yeah.
So what I like to do is go all the way to little Tania. Tania as a little girl in Mexico City. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were thinking of, life ahead of, when you get older?
So I grew up in I had a very loving and warm family. They were very encouraging for me to try different things. The things that I had thought about was wanting to either be a veterinarian or working with animals or something related to biology. I really loved being outdoors. I really loved being, we had lots of pets, visited lots of different ranches that my family had owned. So just a, very curious kid that was excited about the world. That was young Tania.
I love it. And when you think of who you are today, can you almost pinpoint a person that really influenced you and, how you are today growing up? Who's that person?
I'd have to say it's my dad and some of it is also my mom, my parents in general. My dad was the first to actually go to college in his family, and he was the first to receive an international scholarship to study abroad. So it was a big deal, and he was, one of the first few Mexican students that had received this international scholarship. And so he had gotten to travel to Europe and travel to different places around the world, being the only Mexican person at the time. And so it really has influenced me where, being an underrepresented minority in tech where you may not see a lot of other people like myself, to just be comfortable and to be willing to take risks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I just, my mom is the other big influence just because she's a very warm and caring person. And I think that has a lot to do with who I am today and how I like to work with people.
Yeah, I'm sure that even goes into you as a mom to young kids, which we'll talk about, but that's amazing. So growing up in Mexico City, when did college, Stanford, when did that become, your next big dream and next big goal to accomplish? And when did that become a reality?
Great question. I actually had moved around a lot between Mexico and the US. My dad was a consultant, so wherever he had a project, we moved. And when we moved permanently once again from Mexico to the United States when I was in 8th grade, college was not on my mind. I actually was just trying to figure out how to fit in. It was just a difficult time, being an immigrant coming back to the States, and also being, I think middle school is probably one of the worst chapters for for anybody. And so I actually didn't do very well in school, but I did have some time in between the summer, between my 8th grade and high school freshman year, where I got to go back to Mexico, spend some time with my grandparents. And one particular story from my grandmother, who told me about how she was able to get my dad into a great school, just because even though it was unlikely that someone from her background, who was very humble, who was more indigenous, it was a private school that was out of her reach. And even though she insisted that my dad go to this school, and was kind of considered almost a laughing stock. And at first the school was like, no way. They actually admitted my dad. And that story of having conviction in yourself when maybe you may not see that what's in reality this actually taking place, but having conviction in yourself and believing in something greater than you, like my grandmother had believed in my dad, really took a hold of me. And I felt like I need to give myself a chance. I'm going to try my best in high school. I'm going to do whatever I can. And college is one of the things that I think I can do. So I did that. I just really worked really hard. Even though I wasn't the best student, I remember negotiating with my school counselors that I can take these honors classes. And I, was very insistent, just like my grandmother had been, to get my dad into this school. And so that's what I did. And I had the opportunity, actually, I got a really great scholarship to attend Stanford University, which was not something that I had thought it was my dream school. I didn't think I'd be able to get into it, but I just worked so hard that I was able to go. And I really loved that it was in California, in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I just felt a really strong inclination to be there.
Wow. I love that. I love that story. And it's something I've actually talked about on this show, which is even the importance of having a circle or people that, are teaching you what it means to champion for yourself and, give that self-belief and that self-conviction, which is so, so important. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned how Stanford was exciting to you because in the heart of Silicon Valley. So a question for you is, in this moment, did you know about, tech and the whole tech scene? Because from what I understand, you studied human biology at Stanford. So how were you thinking of career, in college, choosing a major, and then career past college?
So that's a great question. I felt like I wanted to be at the epicenter where there was a lot of innovation happening. And that's where I felt that Stanford was. In college, I actually had tried different things. I was excited about what was happening in tech, but I also found that bioengineering and bio was a really exciting space. So as I started taking courses and I started hearing more about advancements in bioengineering and how you could just change like the DNA of different organisms, and they could actually do different things and create, different types of chemicals or substrates that were actually useful in different ways. It was really mind-boggling to me and really fascinating. And so that's why I thought I would go with biology, and I decided to do human biology because not only was it just focused on learning the biology of different things, but also had a human aspect to it and an anthropology aspect to it that I really liked, that was more about understanding some of the philosophy and some of the background and history of what it is to be human. Yeah. So I decided to do that as my major.
Did you have people at Stanford that were guiding you, mentors along the way? Or, when you think back, how were you? Was it more just, I'm interested in this, let me go down that path? Or were you actively, seeking out advice about how to navigate it?
Yeah, I think I can think of quite a few people. And I think that's what I really liked about Stanford, is that if I had an idea or an interest, I could just go and talk to the professor, or I could go and talk to the person who was responsible for that particular domain. One person was Professor McGinn, who was doing some interesting research in science and technology, and just being able to talk to him about, what he saw as, the advancements in science and all the opportunities that were there was really exciting. There were other classes that I took along the way that I also felt were really interesting just from, the advancements in bioengineering that I could just talk to the professor or the TA. So it was sort of a place where there were a lot of interesting people doing interesting things, but also really willing to talk to you and support you in your goals. And I think that's important as you're trying to figure things out, that you have an opportunity to interface with folks, to give you feedback and to ask questions and to look for that type of a supportive environment as you're exploring, your potential career path.
Definitely. And I think Stanford particularly has that beautiful sauce to it where you could talk to the professors and you could get to know them and learn about their research. But in a sense, even bigger universities, it's all about making it small. So I am maybe, I only went to Stanford, but I am convinced that you can almost make it, get the resources that you want by being active and talking to people. So I love that. So after college, I know you went into product management, and I don't know how it was back then when you graduated, but product management has slowly, like, it's quite a prestigious role and a great role to go into, but I do know that there's a lot of uncertainties around it. There's a lot of almost a role that kind of was created. How did you discover product management, and what made you think, okay, this is something that excites me, this is a role I want to take on?
So I definitely stumbled into product management. I had my heart when I was in college. I had my heart in doing bioengineering and was excited about working for a biotech startup, which is what I did during an internship. What I realized in practice, though, was that working in a lab didn't really psych me up. I was the theory of what I was working on, which is synthesizing different types of genes to put them into bacteria, and then those bacteria might actually generate some really interesting results that could help with improving some big industrial practices. Like, the theory of it was really exciting, but the practice of it was not. So I was basically taking a pipette and pipetting back and forth and making sure that my bacteria didn't die, which they often died because, there's many different
Right.
things that might affect the experiment. And so I was looking at, man, like, to see if this worked, it might take me months or a year or more. And then hearing about some of the other things that were happening in biotech that might have another 10 years to prove, it was making me wonder if this was the right place for me. I did have an opportunity, though, to work on websites and to update some of the content and the language. And it was very transformational because I could have an idea of what could actually work to get more people to click through. And in a matter of minutes or like an hour, I would know that this thing actually moved the needle. Did more people actually go to the thing that I was looking for them to go to? And that was transformational for me because I realized I could still be a scientist, but I could do it in a very fast-paced way using software technology. That was sort of the aha moment where I said, okay, I want to now focus on using this, it's kind of being a scientist and using hypothesis and the scientific method to test out if I can change, behaviors for the better online. And that's how I started looking at, well, what do people do? Is there a job for this? Someone at the startup had mentioned, yeah, we actually are hiring for a product manager who's going to help us do this. And I said, product manager, interesting. So someone is actually looking to do this. And as I started, putting out feelers and learning more about product management, I realized, like, this is what I wanted to do after I graduated. And to get that product management role, it turned out I needed to do a lot of hustling. I probably am one of the, on the rare side, a product manager that actually right after college got into product management, because most people that I know, they typically start off in a different discipline, whether it's engineering or marketing or customer support or user experience design, and go into product management. I actually had sort of this insight beforehand, having been exposed to the startup software tech that we were doing, that I wanted to go in there. And I had to literally knock on doors. I think I had applied to probably 100 or 200 jobs and had to network as much as I could, because a lot of what they were looking for product management was someone who had experience, either, lots of coding, or had done some of this, some experience actually formally as a product manager, And I essentially just knocked on as many doors as possible, applied to every single job I think I saw on monster.com, applied to every single job I saw on Craigslist, and ended up getting through one of these, got a few interviews, then got someone to at this startup based in Israel, actually called My Things, to actually give me a chance. They knew some people in my network. They put in a good word. I went to the interview, and I got the job. So that's how I ended up, stumbling into it.
So in this time though, what do you think made you stand out? Because like you said, you didn't have that other experience, whether it's engineering, customer support, things like that. What made you stand out and have that, that company give you a chance?
Yeah, so I had actually in college had tried doing different types of websites, and so I had already built different types of websites. I had used my experience in sort of updating the websites from my internships, and I had done some computer science programming as well as part of the coursework. So I had these really carefully crafted data points about how, as a product manager, or as doing the skills as a product manager, I was able to get these many people to visit my website, and I was able to get these many people to actually take action and sign up for this mailing list. So I had crafted these proof points as to why I had the thinking of a product manager, even though I didn't have the role. And I felt that was really important to get across as I was, looking at different resumes for product managers and looking at the product manager job, to really create a compelling narrative as to why I would be, the best fit for this position, because I had the right thinking in place and I could show it with the proof points that I had. So I think that's what stood out, but it took me a while to get there. I think after like the first 50 applications where I wasn't really getting any signals, I was kind of product managing myself. I wasn't getting any signals, and I realized like I need to try to change this, how I'm framing this from, in my resume, to say that I just built a website, to like, what was the impact that website had? And when I'm pitching myself to someone, instead of saying I'd be great as a product manager, tell them why I would be great for this role and what things that I've done in the past would actually fit for this. So it was definitely a process of PMing myself, and then kind of from there tweaking and getting to a position where I'm getting more leads. I'm getting more people interested. I got it to the first interview, but I didn't make it to this interview. So I need to try, something to better respond to these interview questions. I need to learn more, go online. And I did some research also on what are some case studies and how to correctly, respond with a framework as a product manager. So yeah, a lot of PMing, I think, on myself to get first PM job.
I love that. I really love that. And honestly, I think we're all product managing ourselves every day. So I think that's awesome. I love that line. So from there, you continued to go down the PM path, and then you decided to start your own company. So talk me a little bit through that. What made you say, this is my time, I want to be an entrepreneur? Did you always almost have that itch and thought, okay, this is the time? Or how did you approach that?
I did. I had seen this, scene being part of, within Stanford and as part of the Silicon Valley environment, entrepreneurship. And I've seen friends or, people that, in my network who had started their own companies. And I just thought, like, what a cool experience to be able to try and build something that you're excited and passionate about. And so I had waited. I worked for some very early stage startups, and was looking to see when would be the right time. The last startup that I was a part of, they were winding down the company. They had run out of basically financially, what things weren't looking good. So I thought, well, having had some work experience, having seen what the early stage startup life is like, I felt, more confident to say, all right, now it's time for me to go out and try this on my own and see if this is something that I want to keep doing. So I went ahead and decided to work on a space that I really enjoyed, travel. So I love the idea of getting to know new places and traveling. And I thought that there was something missing, which is how people purchase travel experiences was very static. You're just searching for something and you're buying it. And I thought, but travel is such an incredibly evocative and immersive thing. Like, why is it so static and it's just very kind of confined to text, and I want to go to this place and just get me tickets. So I came up with an idea where travel would be much more immersive, and based on your budget and your mood, what you're looking for, you would get these beautiful curated experiences for anywhere that you could go around the world. And so I was really excited and decided this is a thing that I want to work on, and found a technical co-founder, and we decided to go ahead and build for approximately about a year.
Nice.
Yep.
No, so tell me a little bit about that experience, because obviously it's still different than product management at, the hands of someone else and someone else's vision. But did you see actually that it was a seamless transition from product management to being your own founder, or what were almost the friction points?
Yeah, so I think that because I knew what it took to build features, I knew what it took to build on websites and mobile. I felt that I was in a really good place to actually do that for my idea. I will have to say the biggest friction point that I encountered, and my biggest lesson, was that I was really focused on building and getting the idea perfect. And it's advice that I wish I had given myself early, which is, as a product manager, you should get signals much earlier than trying to get something perfect. But because it was my baby, I felt that whatever I put into the world just had to be right. And so I spent just way too much time just trying to build without getting feedback, without really getting any signals early on. And so when we had decided to launch this, like, there were crickets, really. Like, people had this very entrenched way of purchasing travel. They were used to going on Google Flights. They were used to going on Expedia and buying things there. And no one really had the desire to go and purchase travel in a more immersive way. The people who actually were interested weren't even customers. There were people that sold curated travel experiences, so that they were actually looking to, want to create a better way for their customers that they already had to, like, want to buy a more expensive tour, because there's a lot more. They provided a lot more value add to helping someone book that tour. It was just more expensive, and so they wanted a better interface to do that. So I think that the difference around as an entrepreneur and as an owner of the business, having different pressure and different stakes was the one big learning that I had. And also, really, I approached it as I had, where in previous roles I was like, we just need to build stuff and get going. And I really think that even no code MVPs are the best. Can you get customers from the get-go without having any sort of technology in place is like the best way to test your assumptions. So that was sort of the biggest learnings. And we learned after a year, we decided to wind down the company. But in a surprising twist, because I had been spending so much time on creating these beautiful immersive experiences to get customers, to buy more, especially with those like travel agencies, I suddenly became, people started coming to ask me about feedback. They were like, hey, am I doing the right thing on my website? Like, do you have any advice for how I can increase conversion? How can I make this more engaging for a user? And so there were people from other startup entrepreneurs that were part of this group that, we were co-working space. There were also folks from bigger tech companies. There were folks like nonprofits. And so there was this like pool of people that were just coming to me asking me for advice, and they're like, yeah, e-commerce, you're an e-commerce expert. I had no idea like I was an e-commerce expert, but apparently I became one in this process. And I had these bigger tech companies reaching out to me, and that was actually GoDaddy. Someone from GoDaddy reached out to me and said, hey, we're looking to build a new online store. Would you be willing to be the product manager for this? And I thought, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, this feels like this could be a really interesting, an exciting place to be in. So
that's amazing. I love that. Yeah, everything works out. Everything has a dot to an alignment between, which is amazing.
Yes, it did. Looking back, I think as any entrepreneur can tell you, it can be a very scary and lonely period. And so I'm glad I took the chance that I did. I didn't expect that it would actually lead to additional, opportunities like this. And I'm glad, after trying it for a year, that I realized this isn't going anywhere. Like, what else? I think you have to know when to quit and when to keep going. And so I look back and I say, I think that was the right time for me to stop what I was doing there, focus on this other exciting opportunity, and then later at some point, if I feel the itch again, to go back.
Yeah. So before we even get to GoDaddy and you kind of rising up there in product management, I have a question for you that I think applies to a lot of very driven people, which is, are you able to, or at least have you ever had a challenge in separating, how you do performance-wise in work to you as a person, as Tanya, and your self-worth in a sense, and really separating the two and saying, okay, just because, my company, we had to wind it down doesn't mean that I am, failing in life per se. Have you ever had that? Is that something that speaks to you at all, or no?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think I had the definite crisis of confidence when this happened. I think people, you've heard the term imposter syndrome.
Of course.
But to me, it was just all of a sudden I felt, did I really make the right decision? Do I really have what it takes to be a good product manager if my startup didn't work out? And so I think for a while I was feeling this way, but the fact that I was helping others helped combat that a little bit. The fact that, my startup isn't working out, but these people are looking for my advice and I'm giving them these tips and it's actually working, was a way to balance it out. So I found that when I do have these crises of confidence about whether I am good at what I'm doing, which I still have today, by the way, I find that if I'm able to help others, it grounds me a little bit more in reality and lets me know that, maybe there are some things that I did wrong. There are some things that I made bad decisions around, but at least factually, when I am trying to help someone, whether it's anything from e-commerce advice or professional advice or whatever it is, that at least I can see that these are the things that I am good at, that I am working on to improve other people's lives.
So then in sense, when you are feeling imposter syndrome or you don't belong in the room or you don't feel like you have a voice necessarily, do you actively almost seek out how you can help others, or does it just happen to come naturally? Yeah. How
Yeah.
does that process happen?
Yeah, so I definitely am very self-aware now. I know I'm having this imposter syndrome, and I'm very aware of the feelings that I have toward it. I feel like before I didn't really have a name for it, but now I'm very clear, like, oh, I have this imposter syndrome. The self-critical voices are starting again. And I'm probably, and if it's really bad, I know, like, oh, this is bad. This is like crisis mode. And I know that it gets bad when I all of a sudden, like, I can't stop thinking about, am I making the right decisions or not? So I'm very self-aware. And then from there I go, okay, so in order for me to get out of this like crisis confidence hole, I need to do a few things. I need to be honest. I need to when I talk to people, I need to let them know where I'm at. I don't hiding things, I think, creates shame and makes people like just feel worse. So I'm usually very honest about, I'm having imposter syndrome right now, and it's giving me like I'm having trouble thinking about certain things. And I've done this before, like at work when I'm, if I'm talking to people, I'll just be honest. I'm like, I'm having imposter syndrome about this, so like just bear with me. So just being okay to be vulnerable, I think is really important. And then the second thing is I need my brain to focus on facts, because right now there's a lot of opinion and noise. So in order for my brain to focus on facts, I need to start looking for opportunities for me to like work, either address whatever it is that negative voice is about, or like help other people. And I just find that when I'm in this mode, I'm there's always an opportunity to help others, right? Whether it's at work, if someone is like, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," or I see a gap, I just jump on it, and it gives me the feedback that my brain needs. That like, "Hey, you did a good job with this. At least for this particular thing, you did a good job," or you helped this person with their resume, and they're really appreciative, and that was really good. So I think it's just kind of a strategy of, awareness, vulnerability, and figuring out how you can create concrete examples of the things that you are good at.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's a few things. One is just being kind to yourself, kind of telling yourself, giving yourself that positive affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
The other, and I almost want to, I don't know if it's challenge you, but the idea of vulnerability, right? And I totally see the power in that. But what I'm curious what you think is, what about early on in your career, right? Someone who's coming into a job and the phrase fake it till you make it, and you try, push through and maybe being vulnerable, saying, yeah, I don't feel like I belong here. I don't know. How do you think of it? I feel like it might be easier for someone who's higher up in their career and saying, yes, I've had this experience behind me. I'm okay to say this. What do you think? Does it apply at any age?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because I think as you're starting off that you might feel a little bit more self-aware about being able to share that. So
Right.
looking back, I think that I would have at least um, at least called out to the people where I was feeling if when I did have imposter syndrome. I think I would have at least felt comfortable saying, "Hey, this is where I'm struggling that I'm feeling good at. Can you give me some examples that I can help out with or that I could just give me some more confidence in this?" So just at least being able to reach out and express where you might be feeling that struggle and where that person could help you, because having been now in a position where I have hired or worked with very early stage folks, I, as a manager or as a leader, that's really useful information, right? It's in my best interest to make sure that my team is set up for success. And if you're struggling with, that confidence, I would love to know so that I could then sort of guide the right resources or the right frameworks to think about it so you could be more successful in your job. I think the best managers and the best leaders will take that up and be like, thank you so much for being honest. Like, here's some of the things that we can work on together. It's a tool to better yourself, in the workplace.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think I like that advice a lot. So towards the end of GoDaddy, from my understanding in the timeline, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a baby, and right now you have 2 kids. I would love to know, almost being a mother, how has that been, specifically, even in terms of being a driven woman, starting a career, or at least like wanting to advance in your career. What was going through your mind in this sense? Yeah. How has that been, the challenges and whatnot?
Great question. So I think that having been a mom of 2 kids, and also having survived the pandemic with 2 kids under 2, it's a big,
Wow.
big parenting milestone. But I would say that, for me, it was important for me to be a parent. And I also, at the time, felt that I wanted to continue with my professional aspirations. That was my personal decision. I think it varies depending on, what you're looking for and who you are. I know plenty of successful women who've decided that they wanted to take a pause, and they actually came back after some time when they felt that they were ready. So I think that it's not binary. I think that it's something that you can decide whether, when is the right time, if you want to take a pause or if you want to accelerate your professional aspirations. And it's fluid. So you might be that, after your child is, a year old, you realize, I actually want to take a little bit of time off. I'm really feeling the need to do that. So it's not an either or an or, it's just more of a just checking in and figuring out what is the right time, how you want to pursue this or not. In my case, I actually felt that I wanted to continue pursuing my professional aspirations. I was fortunate in that the workplace that I was at GoDaddy, were very supportive to parents, and they offered a great work-life balance. And so I felt it was the right place for me and the right place for me to pursue. In fact, I was expecting my second child, and at GoDaddy, I wasn't really sure if I was going to get promoted or not because I was going to go on maternity leave, and I got promoted, and I talked to my manager, and my manager's like, you succeeding here has nothing to do whether you are having, expecting or not, like it's based on what you've been able to accomplish so far. So it's just being in the right place. I think that supported that was really key. Secondly, yeah, so I think that's something that I would recommend is you're looking for, having a family. Make sure that you're in a supportive environment that will let you do that. I think that's half the battle. Um, and also having seen that there were other moms as well at GoDaddy that were having kids and were doing very well professionally. They were getting promoted. They were really talented and they were being rewarded for it. And being a mom had nothing. They were still moms. It had nothing to do with it. So I think make sure look out, talk to your net. If family is something that you want to do, talk to your network, reach out. There's figure out if that's something that where are those places that are supportive. If you're interested in product management, there's a great women in product group on Facebook where you can actually ask these types of questions. So yeah, putting yourself in the right place, and then seeing, I call it, there's this talk about work-life balance. I really call it like dropping balls because once you have kids, you have to have your priorities straight on what are the things that you most care about. For me, once I'm done with work, I want to be with my kids. And as a result, there are a lot of things that I really don't really have time for or don't want to be spending that much time around. So it's really like kind of ruthless prioritization and figuring out what I'm willing to outsource, whether it's like cleaning or cooking, which are things that I would just rather spend time with my kids. And it's not easy. I feel sometimes like I'm struggling to get through the day, but just having that sense of prioritization and what matters, and being okay. This is something that I really struggled with, like perfectionism. Like, for someone who's looking to be a mom, they picture themselves as like, oh yeah, this like professional who's looks great and is like, their kids are so just, really quietly playing in the background, and they have this image of this perfectly cleaned house. Like, take that and like rip it apart because there are days where like, oh my god, I need to comb my hair, like the house is a mess, like but that's okay because at least I was able to focus on work and being with my kids, and I'm a little bit kinder to myself on what it means to have that it's not perfect, but it's a rewarding is how I would say it. Yeah.
It's a messy perfect, if you will. It's a different kind of perfect, which is great.
Messy perfect. And it is very messy. It is very chaotic. And at the end of the day, I tell myself, no matter what, at least I was able to like, do these things with my kids, do these things at work. And that's the metric that I'm going to go by. Not like, I didn't get to, I wasn't able to cook like this meal for the kids. We had to do this like DoorDash thing, So yeah, it changes how you evaluate what you want, what success is, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when you mention the prioritization, really good friend of mine almost has this analogy where, and I think you actually mentioned similar with this idea of glass balls. So you can have glass balls where, if you drop them, then they'll break. So those are almost like your highest priority. But then you also have rubber balls where it's okay that they drop, right? And that's okay to just leave them for now and almost prioritize it. So I love that visual in a sense. And I feel like, having a family, building a family, becoming a mom while also being driven in a career, I think that framework can even be applied more so, which is great. So switching over to Shopify, how did that process happen? What were you almost optimizing for when you were thinking of that next decision?
Yeah, so I actually had gotten the itch to start my own thing. I had been at Shopify for almost, I think, 8 years, and I felt like it was time to maybe try working on my own entrepreneurial journey again. So I started tinkering with ideas, talking to folks, just reaching out to my network. I was sort of, here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what could be next steps. In the process, someone from Shopify had actually reached out to me and said, hey, if you're looking for something entrepreneurial, we actually have a very startup-like entrepreneurial organization in our fulfillment and logistics side. So this might be something, you may want to check out. And so I did, and I thought, oh, this would probably be a great place. I wasn't quite ready yet to take the leap on entrepreneurship, but I thought this is something that's not in an area I had worked at previously at GoDaddy. At GoDaddy, I was building e-commerce and online stores, like the front-facing websites that people use to buy things. And in this area at Shopify, I was working on the delivery piece. So how inventory gets sent to customers through this geographic network of warehouses. So I thought, wow, like what a cool place to be in, very different than what I was doing at GoDaddy. Fulfillment sounds like, just really interesting and different challenge, and also very entrepreneurial. So I thought I thought of taking the leap, and that's
Yeah.
And it's been very much so, very, very startup like, and have learned so much about fulfillment and logistics, a completely new domain area that's been very rewarding.
Wow.
Mhm.
It's, what's cool is thinking about your career, it seems like there's a pattern in which one, having this open mind, but also excited to explore and, talking to people, and a lot of things, like one thing leads to another, and you find yourself in front of an incredible opportunity that you can't pass up.
Mhm.
So I think that's it's very helpful, almost just to kind of give you that free range to say, look, at the end of the day, talking to people is so important, and you never know where it could lead you. And so I think that's awesome. I love that.
For sure. If I could add one thing when I look, because there's going to be many opportunities that are going to get thrown at you, and so I always feel like, is this something I'm going to double down? Like, heck yes, like I want to do this, or is this meh? Like, is this meh, or I'm not really feeling it? I have this like internal rubric where I'm like looking at this, and if I am like, heck yes, I want to do this, then I'll do it. But anything else, I'm like, no, I'm just not feeling. And it's helped me a lot, because earlier on, I knew like I wasn't that interested, or I knew like, should I do that? And I've spent time on things that weren't really that exciting. And I feel like the more you can listen to that voice that's like, I definitely want to do this, like the better you'll be at kind of identifying the right opportunities to work on.
Do you apply that rubric just to career opportunities, or almost everything in your life?
Pretty much almost everything. So there are things, yeah. So professionally, it's been very helpful, but also, for example, like anything that has to do, kids activities and things that I'm volunteering for. If there's anything that
Yeah.
like I'm not really excited about it, then that's not something I'm going to do. But if I am like, yes, let's do it, it at least helps me figure out what things I want to prioritize for and I should be spending time on. And it also, like, given there's so much going on, right? At least if I'm excited about it, that it'll make it easier for me to fit in more time to do it. So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much everything. There's some things you just have to do, right?
Right.
Like I'm not that excited at the, whether it is about like I'm trying to think of an example where there's like gotta do like the dishes, or
Yeah,
there's something you
exactly.
just have to do that's just table stakes. But when there are open doors,
Right.
when there's a potential open door, that's the rubric that I
That's awesome.
follow.
That's great. Tanya, what would you say is your superpower?
So I think empathy is my superpower. So I think that as a product manager, I empathize a lot with customers, and I know exactly, like, it's easy for me to hear their problems and to figure out like what things are really affecting them and what features we should build. And I also think it's something that I use as a leader. I really like to empathize with my team. I really think that having a safe place for us to just be and to collaborate together is really important. So yeah, I think having empathy is a superpower of mine.
What is your most contrarian but high conviction opinion?
So I think what I have read philosophically lately is that, in order for humanity to survive, is that we need to have high IQ in society, and we need to like have more people of high IQ having kids. I think this is something that I read or someone had told me recently. And my contrarian philosophy is actually we need more EQ in the world. I think that
Yep.
hunter gatherers of the past, they were only able to survive with EQ. And having been a mom and seeing how hard it is, to raise a kid, I can see how I think moms in the past had the support of an entire village, and they were able to like do well because they had so much support. And I think that we need more EQ. Our society needs more EQ. We need to care more about each other. We need to know how to work together better versus just like intelligence.
I 100% agree. I don't know if that's so contrarian. Maybe it is because based off of that philosophy, but no, really, I think that's so important, and especially because relationships in general, whether it's partner, any type of relationship, is almost the fundamental of humanity, and EQ, empathy, all of that plays such a big role. So I love that. I absolutely love that. Tania, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. I really, really appreciate it. It's been so great. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
It was my pleasure. This was so wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the show this week. If you enjoyed, please spread the word. Tell someone about She Leads or post about it on social media and tag us. If you want to contact us, feel free to send over a message through the She Leads Instagram page at sheleads.show. If you want to follow us on Twitter, our account is @SheLeadsShow, and mine is @Carly Malatsky. This episode was produced and edited by Nick Furshow. Thank you also to our partner, Floodgate. If you're passionate about startups and want to learn more about the starting journey of those who have built groundbreaking companies, I highly recommend listening to Starting Greatness with Mike Maples Jr., the founding partner of Floodgate. He has an incredible show that, in my opinion, is definitely worth your time. Thanks again.